Here, my professor gives another example of information warfare. It says, during the invasion of Iraq, Iraqi soldiers entered multiple Kuwaiti hospitals, removed babies from their incubators, shipped the incubators back to Iraq, and left babies on the floor. The story was repeated often. Several witnesses came forward. Here he lists the people that were involved with this story about the Iraqis stealing incubators from the Kuwaitis. This is during the first Gulf War. So during the first Gulf War, Iraq invaded Kuwait. And then there was an information operation to convince everyone to hate Iraq. And so there's this testimony of this girl, Naira, who her full name was kept confidential to prevent Iraqi reprisal against her family in occupied Kuwait. Sobbing, she described what she had seen with her own eyes in a hospital in Kuwait City. Her written testimony was passed out in a media kit prepared by Citizens for a Free Kuwait. I volunteered at the Al Adan hospital. While I was there, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns and go into the room where babies were in incubators. They took the babies out of the incubators, and left the babies on the cold floor to die. So, lying to Congress. The Human Rights Caucus is not a committee of Congress, and therefore it is unencumbered by the legal accoutrement that would make a witness hesitate before he or she lied. Lying under oath in front of a congressional committee is a crime. Lying from under the cover of anonymity to a caucus is merely public relations. So the story continues. Hill and Knowlton had the baby incubator story repeated before the United Nations Security Council chamber in an audio-visual presentation on November 27. The presentation was loaded with anonymous charges of Iraqi brutality and the reiteration of the baby incubator story. A Kuwaiti dentist, claiming to be a surgeon and using a false name, testified that under his supervision, 120 newborn babies were buried in the second week of the invasion. President Bush. The baby incubator story was repeated 6 times by George Bush in various political speeches, including a speech to the troops near Dahran. It turns your stomach when you listen to the tales of those that have escaped the brutality of Saddam the invader. Mass hangings, babies pulled from incubators, and scattered like firewood across the floor. So the obvious question is, was the incubator story true? Was Saddam Hussein going into Kuwait and killing babies to take their incubators? So on January 17th in 1991, this guy from the Los Angeles Times challenged the incubator myth. According to London Amnesty International spokesman Sean Stiles, we spoke to well over a dozen doctors of different nationalities who had been in Kuwait at the time, and they couldn't stand the story up. And it became quite clear to us that that credible medical opinion was that this didn't happen. Amnesty International backed down from their original story in the 7th paragraph of a press release stating that they had found no reliable evidence that Iraqi forces had caused the deaths of babies by removing them from incubators. So that's probably the most perfect example of information warfare that you will ever hear. Because, think about it. Everyone loves babies. And everyone hates Saddam Hussein. So what was the effect? The final decision to go to war was made on January 12, 1991 in a Senate vote of 52 to 47. Before passing the resolution, 6 pro-war senators specifically brought forth the baby incubator allegations in their speeches supporting the resolution. So without this story, would there have been a war? Probably. But we wouldn't have been able to get as many people to support the war. I mean, you have to understand, Saddam Hussein was one of the greatest victims of information warfare operations in history. He was accused of trying to get yellow cake, or he'd gotten uranium or something like that from Africa. And that's why we did the second Gulf War. The first Gulf War was because of babies being ripped out of incubators because Iraq invaded Kuwait. The second Gulf War was because Saddam was trying to get nuclear weapons. But at the same time, was Saddam an expert on information warfare? Dude, he was the best. He did all these crazy building projects in eastern Iraq for the Shia, or the Shiite, because he was Sunni, and he wanted to appeal to his to the other side because he needed their support. He always talked about Kuwait owing them money because he said that Kuwait had ripped them off. Saddam was all about doing information operations. Saddam, like everyone in the Middle East, used religion to manipulate people through politics. And it's kind of like recently Matt Getz said, we need to do the Pledge of Allegiance every time we stand up before our meetings. And that's an information warfare technique. I mean, it's kind of like, we need the Bible to be read before every meeting. It's like, all right, you're trying to show how religious you are, to show how good of a person you are. And everyone does it. The Iraqi leaders do it. Everybody in freaking Palestine's religious. You could never get elected if you weren't a religious person. Benjamin Netanyahu is the biggest religious nut around. Why? Because it helps him with his politics. And so life is an information operation. But I'll jump to the summary. And so what is the importance and significance of this material, and how does this topic fit into the subject of voice and data security? So, like I've said before, when you can hack people, you can change the information they get. So there are public information operations. That you put out there through the media. There are movies that are information operations, such as the movie about the rape of Nanjing in that China came out with. And if you watch the show, the Japanese all have like red in their eyes. It's like they're all like on fire. They're all like, kill the babies, like kill the women, let's rape them all. Like, I mean, that's an information operation. And a lot of the time, information operations encourage your people to be more proud of their country. They encourage patriotism. So there are a lot of ways that people do information operations, but probably the best example out of all of this is this whole story that everyone repeated over and over again about Saddam Hussein going and ripping babies out of their incubators from Kuwait, and then what happened? Our troops got sent to Iraq, which ended up with a lot of Iraqis dying. By some accounts, 1 to 2 million Iraqi civilians were killed. That's what Osama bin Laden said. And was Osama bin Laden all about information operations? Clearly he was. I mean, that's part of his information operation, is telling everyone that the Americans will kill civilians and that they kill innocent Muslims. And so there are a lot of ways to do information operations, but clearly I got trained in information operations. This guy that trained me, he is just a teacher, but he was very smart, and I was very grateful for the training, and he probably didn't fully understand who he was training, who knows, but all I know is life's an information operation if you're a public person.